Hello and welcome to a Jared Dudley is a damn bum version of TJs One of Us here at the Always Next Year podcast. I am the host of this segment, Shane Mead, and we are up. The 76ers are now up 2-1 against the Brooklyn Nets as some of the momentum from that third quarter Game 2 victory has extended into the third game of this series here as the 76ers take back the home court from Brooklyn. So a couple things. Joel Embiid doesn't play. Makes this game that much more important. You go into Brooklyn, first game in Brooklyn in this series, and you beat them without Joe, without your MVP candidate, Joel Embiid. That has to inflict some fear for Brooklyn, and it has to inflict a ton of confidence for you. That's a big factor there. Second, Brooklyn Nets, they thought they were cute. You see, they thought they were real cute. Challenging Ben Simmons, coming in there and giving him all those boos. All Ben Simmons did, let's just give you the stat line here. So a playoff career high, Ben Simmons scores 31 points. Gets 4 boards, 9 assists, 2 steals, 3 blocks. Talk about efficient. The guy goes 11 of 13 from the floor, and then more importantly, 9 of 11 from the line. And then even more importantly than that, with his fast-paced as Ben Simmons likes to play. And for as much as he has been challenged now by the Brooklyn Nets in saying that, yes, he is an elite player in a full-court game, in a fast-paced game, in a fast-break game, that in a half-court, dude's just average. He only turns the basketball over 3 times, and he creates opportunity after opportunity after opportunity all night, and keeps the 76ers in the game when it was close, and then keeps them at a distance when they were able to extend that lead. Ben Simmons not answered everybody's calls into saying that he is no longer or should never be considered an average player in the NBA. Ben Simmons is elite. Jump shot or no jump shot, this man is an elite basketball player. I mentioned it on tonight's episode of Crossing Borders, which we recorded during the 76ers game, which was a tough thing to get through, but hey, Connor and I, we did it. We managed. As we're watching this game, and in Crossing Borders, I sit there and I mention, Ben Simmons makes those comments after Game 1, and it very well may be the defining moment in Ben Simmons' career as a 76er. You have 2 ways that you can go. You make that kind of a dumbass comment, albeit in an emotional moment, but you make it in a difficult city such as Philadelphia. One of two things will happen. It is either the beginning of the end of your career in Philadelphia, and it does not matter how talented, supremely gifted you are. You are now on your way out. You will never regain this fan base. That is if you go into those games and you do not perform. That is if you do not respond. That is not if you do not own up to the things that he stated after that post game, which again, a moment of honesty and emotion because of everything that went on in that Game 1 debacle. Or the second of 2 things. You collect yourself. You take 2 minutes to think. You take 3 minutes to sit there and respond to yourself after reading all of social media, after hearing all of the buzz, after hearing everything that you just made the fan base sit there and think. You evaluate yourself and you make a change. You come in and you own that in the next round of interviews that you undoubtedly get, and he did. And then you got to come in and you got to ball out on your home court in front of those fans, and then you got to give every single person in that arena a reason to sit there and love you again, and damn it, he did. 2 ways you can respond. 1, you punch your ticket to the beginning of the end of your Philadelphia career as an athlete here in this wonderful sports city. Or 2, you kick the shit out of that comment, and you kick the shit out of the Brooklyn Nets. And that's what Ben Simmons is doing right now. And that is what the 76ers as a team are doing right now. And I do believe that no matter how dumbass those comments were after Game 1, it is undoubtedly the start of the rest of Ben Simmons' career here in Philadelphia. You want assertive, you got assertive now. You want an angry Ben, you got an angry Ben now. You want someone to come out there and show you that he wants to reach his full potential, that he truly wants to back up what he said towards the end of the year, that he and Joe both want to build a dynasty here in Philadelphia for years to come. They want to be the attraction city that other athletes want to come to. They want to be like the Eagles. They want to be like the Phillies right now. This team has an opportunity to be something very, very, very special. And they don't do that without Ben Simmons. And they don't do that if Ben Simmons doesn't get to where he can go in a damn hurry. And those dumbass comments started it. This man now came out in Game 2, and he did all the right things. He got his home court involved. He got those fans involved. He got his teammates involved, and he showed up. And then all he did in Game 3, when Brooklyn was in there and they thought they were cute, they thought they were real damn cute, is all he did was drop a playoff career high, 31 points. 9 assists, 4 boards, 2 steals, 3 blocks. Efficient from the line, efficient from the field, and efficient with the ball. Good luck, Brooklyn. Good freaking luck. A couple other things that stood out to me in this game. It's Tobias Harris. Now, Tobias Harris started off Game 2 a little bit slow, but certainly found his rhythm and found his confidence in his shot. Tobias Harris, we wanted him to shoot the basketball more. He took 19 shots tonight. And I think the biggest shot for me was after it came on a stretch where he missed 2 or 3 jump shots in a single series. He's beginning to carry the ball more. He's beginning to dominate that basketball just a little bit more, right? We're seeing it. Whether the basketball's being brought up by Jimmy or whether it's being brought up by Ben or now even Tobias Harris. Brett Brown is finding ways to make these guys comfortable on the court, finding ways and packages and ways to utilize them that best serves their skill set. Tobias Harris is used to being the guy. He's used to being the option. He's used to being the clean shot. He is not used to being the contested 3 that a J.J. Redick may have, which is essentially what he has been being asked to do. That doesn't work. So now he's got the ball in his hands a little bit more. He's got a little bit more freedom and creativity. And after missing a handful of shots in one sequence, he then gets the ball on a fast break, comes down the court, sees that the defense is giving him some room, knocks down a 3. Just knocks down a transition 3 on a ball that he brought up. Perfect. That to me shows a different style and different confidence level that is coming from your now 4th superstar, your 2nd superstar acquired within this current season. That's big because the 76ers need Tobias Harris. They need him to do what he is going to do. They brought him in here to be a shooter because, let's face it, the rest of this team can't freaking shoot. Ben Simmons won't shoot yet. That's fine. He doesn't have to. It's not his game. J.J. Redick is a contested but streaky shooter. Okay. He is basically sitting behind the arc. That is basically his job. Jimmy Butler, we saw it tonight. I actually tweeted about it. I don't know what the hell his deal was. He had 4 or 5 opportunities in a 3-4 second span right at the top of the key to either take a step back 3, to set himself and take a 3, to step into a long range 2, and he didn't do it. He just didn't look right. He didn't look confident. Jimmy Butler, though, while on the topic, he goes 6 of 13 from the floor, and he goes 4 of 4 from the line. He scores 16 points, and he has 7 assists. Now, I mentioned that he's bringing the ball up part-time. Tobias is bringing up the ball part-time. Ben Simmons is bringing up the ball part-time. So none of these guys are going to sit there and dominate control of this game in terms of who's going to facilitate and who's going to run this floor. But one thing Jimmy Butler said after Game 1 is the fact that, yes, he did score 36 points. Yes, he did have 9 boards, 7 boards, whatever it was. Yes, he did have 2 blocks and 2 steals and active hands on defense. But the thing that stuck out to him, and again, this is a very smart comment for him to say in that post-game, was that he was disappointed in himself for not getting his teammates involved because he had 0 assists. Game 2, he came out and he did a little bit of everything. A little bit of everything. 7 points, 4 boards, 7 assists. He came out again tonight with 16 points. He did have 2 boards and 2 steals with, again, very active hands on the defensive side. He had 7 assists again for a part-time point guard. 7 assists for a part-time point guard. Jimmy Butler's buying in right now. I mentioned it again on that Crossing Borders show, and I mentioned it a little bit differently this time. So last week, if you listened, I said that I felt as though Jimmy Butler needed the 76ers at this point in his career more than what the 76ers needed Jimmy Butler. One thing is being increasingly clear to me is that line is beginning to match up. It's beginning to look like the perfect marriage. It's beginning to look like the 76ers may in fact need Jimmy Butler just as much as Jimmy Butler needs the Philadelphia 76ers. There's a level of maturity, yes, maturity, with Jimmy Butler. There's a level of maturity there that is lacking right now in a Ben Simmons and in a Joel Embiid. Having him here helps. Having his style of play to shake up the offense helps. Jimmy Butler right now is an incredibly integral part to what the Philadelphia 76ers can accomplish this year. And if you're hearing snoring right now, that is because my dog is in the studio because he's a good guy. And he certainly deserves it, but he's a little passed out now from the Philadelphia 76ers game. Mentioned Joel Embiid didn't play. Greg Monroe, he gets 24 minutes. Bobby, he gets 18. Decent game from the two of them. Nothing overly great. Bobby, again, his stat line's pretty good. He's 14 points, 8 boards, an assist, a steal, and a block. He was 3 of 5 from the field. Most importantly, he was 8 of 8 from the line. The 76ers as a team went 30 of 35 from the line, which is far, far better than what they had obviously shot in Game 1. That was something, again, I had mentioned. They weren't going to continue to consistently shoot 60-some percent, 65% for the free throw line throughout this series. That was obviously going to increase. They're up to about 86% now. And Bobby getting to the line 8 times and knocking all 8 down certainly helps, especially when you only get 5 shots. Greg Monroe, obviously a very, very, very late season acquisition. He gets 9 points, 13 boards, 1 assist, 1 steal, 1 block. He goes 4 of 13 from the field and 1 of 2 from the free throw line. Here is my biggest issue with Greg Monroe, and which makes the whole of Joel Embiid that much more glaring. Now, while I do believe that we can get through the Nets without Joel Embiid, beyond that, it becomes a little questionable. You cannot lean on a guy like Greg Monroe. Greg Monroe, I mentioned, goes 4 of 13 from the floor, right? I'm pretty positive that at least 5 or 6 shots in there were because he refused to go to the rim with any type of authority. You're that big. You are that strong. You've got to use your body. You've got to find a way to finish at the rim. There were entirely too many points, and Bobby, honestly, a couple of the field goals, or his only couple field goals really that he missed tonight were very similar. Ben Simmons at times does the same thing. When you have the ability to finish strong at the rim, you got to do it. Whether it's a dunk, whether it's finding a way to utilize your body to create the space that is needed to give you a clear path to the basketball or to the rim, you got to find a way. These guys are entirely too soft in the paint right now when you are not playing with a Joel Embiid. Greg Monroe really pissed me off tonight watching him play basketball. Again, not a terrible game from him, but 4 of 13 from the floor when I think 4 or 5, maybe 6 of those shots missed were within 2 feet of the rim. That's inexcusable. You know, when that game was still close in the first half there, in the first 17, 18 minutes of game time, you look at those plays and you say, shit, you know, that's a 6, 8, 10, 12 point swing here if you knock some of those down. It's an even greater swing when you miss and then don't get back down on the defensive side, and then you're late to your assignments and you give easy buckets down low. Too many things there were a problem for me with Monroe's game. But again, if you're beating the Nets by 16 on their home floor without Joel Embiid, I guess these are things you're just going to have to live with. Another glaring hole for the game was Mike Scott goes 0 of 4 from the field, doesn't score, only gets 2 boards, 2 assists, and 1 steal. He did do a little bit better of a job fighting through screens tonight. I'm never overly impressed with the regional manager that is Michael Scott. You know, but I understand that he's a necessary part to this team. You know, and legitimately our only real bench player, as obviously Ennis is still working his way back into game shape. He did play 19 minutes tonight. Ennis, he did score 4 points and have 6 boards. Did not have an assist. He had a steal. His defense was okay, but again, he's still working himself into that game shape. You know, yes, game 2 was his first game back there, and it does make a big difference to have a guy like him back. You know, but overall, again, we do continue to see that the bench is increasingly thin. You know, obviously guys like you know, TJ McConnell, Jonathan Simmons, Furkan Korkmaz, and Jonah Bolden all get the last 2 minutes of the basketball game when the game was pretty much in hand and Brooklyn decided that they were going to concede. You know, again, 131 points. This is the first time the broadcast mentioned it's the first time all season that the 76ers had gone over 130 points back-to-back games, and they do it in the playoffs, and they do it in a game without Joel Embiid. I mentioned it sarcastically in the first game recap. Don't worry, relax. It's the Brooklyn Nets. You can't sit here and overblow what you're seeing and think that this team cannot come back, and that they were going to be swept by the Brooklyn Nets. It was just unrealistic. Everyone's reaction was emotional and in the moment, and everyone's entitled to that. Ben certainly used it in his way of speaking there. But that was never going to be the full series picture. And then I said it in episode 2 to open it up. I told you to trust in that. But if there's any indication now that the 76ers are a significantly better basketball team than what the Brooklyn Nets are, it is a game like this when you play and beat them on their home court with next to no bench and your superstar center is not playing. Brooklyn was going to win a game, maybe 2 games in this series. But ultimately, when you have Ben Simmons now playing the assertive style of basketball that he has shown in the last 2 nights, or in the last 2 games, not nights. The NBA is insane with their days in rest. When you have Jimmy Butler, when you have Tobias Harris, who is finally finding his game, and when Brett Brown is finding a way to adequately use each superstar piece, it doesn't matter how much deeper in terms of bench pieces and like NBA caliber players that you can lean on. It doesn't matter how much deeper a team like the Nets are when the overall talent that what you put on the court can't match the 3 or 4 stars that we put on at any given time, plus the JJ Redick. This series was only going to end one way, with the 76ers advancing to the next round. Yes, that game 1 put a damper in those hopes and that confidence level for 5 minutes. But then you sit there and you logically think about it and you break it down and you say, who do the Brooklyn Nets have that can seriously stop this offense? Can they score with us? Yes. But they got 2 shooters, 2.5 shooters on that team. It was an unrealistic dream for the Brooklyn Nets to believe that they can beat the Philadelphia 76ers, and I wholeheartedly believe that. And I mentioned that in both the previous games there. 76ers will be back on Saturday in Brooklyn again for Game 4. I expect much of the same. I don't know if Joe's going to play. I think, truthfully, with the way that they were able to win out in this game without him, it would not shock me if he does not dress. I think that beyond that point, I think if we win on Saturday, I don't really see Joe playing the rest of this series. I think that they just continue to try to get that knee right. Things do get a little bit more interesting if Brooklyn sneaks one out again on Saturday. I think that applies some pressure here for Joe to play the remainder of the series, but I guess we're going to find that out. But again, this is a Game 3 recap and a Game 3 that saw the 76ers kind of pull away again in the second half because Brett Brown was able to sit there and find a way to utilize these guys, and the guys began to click in ways that we know that they can. 76ers win this one 131-115, and again, as mentioned, are back on Saturday in Brooklyn. For the Always Next Year podcast, I am Shane. You can follow me on my personal, @Shane_Mead, and you can also follow the podcast @ANY Podcast. And we'll be back on Sunday for TJs One of Us with another episode and post-game recap.